Hello, welcome back to another video. Today I am joined by this thing in my room to melt wax to make my room smell good. Let's all give him a round of applause. So far in every YouTube video I have posted, I am wearing a crew neck sweatshirt. And I think I like that. I like that consistency. Rest assured I own a lot of crew neck sweatshirts, so I'm gonna keep it going as long as I can. It is also the middle of summer. I won't be stopped when it comes to wearing sweaters or sweatshirts because I like to pretend like it's winter all the time. Today I'm going to be talking about why Euphoria is the greatest show right now. And I almost went as far as to say it is the greatest show ever, but I think because there's only one season, that's a little bit of a bold statement to make, but I definitely think that it has the potential to do that, and it's like kind of on the track of doing that. I'm gonna just talk about my favorite episode, a lot of the reasons why I think it's one of the greatest shows out right now, and just everything I love about it. And if you haven't watched it, then maybe this will sell you, and if you have, then maybe you can assess what you also like about the show. So I'm just gonna jump right into it because I do have a lot to say, and then yeah. So I don't think I realized how much I liked Euphoria when I first watched it, and I knew that I liked it, but it wasn't until recently when I rewatched it that I realized how much I loved it. I watched it last summer when it was coming out. I was in the middle of band camp, and it was I looked forward to it whenever it was coming out on Sundays, and I really enjoyed it then. So I was really into it, but recently for some reason on TikTok everyone's just kind of started talking about it again, because I think that Euphoria season 2 would be filming right now if COVID wasn't happening, which is so heartbreaking to think about because we've already had to wait a long time and I would wait even longer, but it's fine, something to look forward to. But I recently rewatched it, and I don't know, my appreciation for it was a lot greater, and I think it's because this past years that it's been since I've watched it, I have a greater appreciation for the technical aspects of film and TV shows, rather than only appreciating the acting and praising the actors. I have a lot more understanding and respect for the production process. So Euphoria is directed by Sam Levinson, and I just found out semi-recently that he also directed Assassination Nation, which is a movie that I really like. And it makes so much sense now because I love the cinematography on both Euphoria and Assassination Nation. So it makes sense that he does that. And the cinematographer is also the same for the show and the movie. Sam Levinson and his cinematographer have worked on both. The cinematography in this show is just insane. I don't think I've ever seen this kind of cinematography just on a TV show, because it does feel like a movie. It's produced by A24, which is a very popular film production company, and I think that the cinematography and the whole production process accounts for the fact that it does feel like a film, but it's just kind of chopped up into parts. There are so many amazing scenes. If you haven't watched some of the Euphoria behind the scenes, they did a video about the spinning scene when the room is spinning, and it's so cool. The way that the camera movement is, the way it goes over people's heads or moves all around, is so purposeful and really, really symbolizes what's happening, especially in the episode when Jules is talking to Nate, and they do a lot of the split screen, kind of show the parallels between them. The entire fair episode is insane. The way that it looks is so cool. And of course, probably most notably, the colors used in this. I think that that's probably where the biggest comparison for Assassination Nation and Euphoria comes in, because the colors are so purposeful and used so much in Assassination Nation, and the same goes for Euphoria. And because those like colors and lights are used, it like makes the mood so much more prevalent, and it really makes it like hit the audience a lot more because the colors are just like there. It kind of oozes out of every scene. Coincidentally, I actually have a song from Euphoria. It's stuck in my head right now. And that's something else we should talk about. The music in this show is amazing. It was all done by Labyrinth. I think it's just one person. Maybe it's a band, I could be wrong. But the music is spectacular, really, really awesome. And it totally sets the mood. I think honestly, like everything as like far as the camera movement, the lighting, the music, the acting, it all just makes the show so moody. Like there's so many different moods, there's so many different tones. At times it's really like comedic and funny, like in the scenes when Rue is pretending to be a detective with Lexi. At other times it's incredibly intense, and then there's times when it's just like kind of fun and lighthearted. I think that everything that's put into making this show is able to make those mood switches possible, because without it, I think the show would be kind of very one-dimensional, which I think is the problem with a lot of other shows on TV right now, is that they can't make these mood shifts happen because they're not putting in as much effort as far as putting the audience there with them. And I think that comes from like the cinematography not being as good, I guess. The acting is obviously phenomenal. I think everyone is pretty much in agreement on that. Zendaya definitely deserved her Emmy nomination. Jacob Elordi, I don't think anyone saw that coming after Kissing Booth. I don't think a single person saw that coming, but he absolutely killed it. Everyone did. Not a single performance was not up to par. And so to kind of piggyback off of the acting, I want to talk about the characters, because I think the characters are the most important part of the show. I mean, obviously, but I want to talk about like why the characters are so important. Because I think that there are instances in shows when the production process or just the way that the show looks is so good that sometimes you don't really need these super amazing fleshed out characters for the show to be considered good. But I think that Euphoria has both, and I think that they execute everything to like the highest degree. So if you haven't watched Euphoria yet, basically each episode starts out with Rue, the main character, narrating a different character's kind of life or backstory. So typically we find out about their childhood, we find out about just their personality at a more deeper level, what they like, what they dislike. So out of the 8 episodes that we were given, we got an in-depth look into each character. Now, I just want to point out that just because each episode starts by giving us a little bit of insight to a character, it doesn't mean that the entire episode follows them, because I know that there are shows that kind of do that, but it basically just gives you a little bit of insight to this person, and then it'll show us glimpses of them, but it also has other characters involved. I think that is probably my favorite way to learn about a character. And I know that there's definitely some grievances in movies and film whenever they kind of just tell you about this person rather than showing you. But I think, in my opinion, it works out really well with this show because we do see a little bit. So the first episode is about Rue, the main character, and then the next episodes are some of the other main characters. But what I think works about it all is that in the first episode, we meet all of these characters. We see them do things, we see their actions. And then I think that as we move on and we get more episodes that give us an insight into those characters, it kind of makes sense of what they have previously done. For example, we don't have Nate Jacobs' episode until episode 3. Nate Jacobs is probably one of the most complex characters. He's not a good person, but he is so compelling because he's so crazy. And Nate Jacobs is played by Jacob Elordi, if you have not watched the show. But we don't get his episode until episode 3, which doesn't sound like a lot, but because the first 2 episodes are so long, we see Nate Jacobs do enough things that we are so now interested to know who he is and like what his deal is. And then we start out episode 3 and we get like a influx of information about this man, and we're like, okay, it makes sense why he is a little bit crazy. And I really like that. And it's the same with a bunch of other characters. We get episodes about Cassie and McKay and Jules, and it kind of doesn't really justify, but it does make sense of some of the things that they have done previously. And I think that that's the best part of the show, is seeing these characters sort of unravel and slowly get revealed to the audience. I think that even though a lot of these characters, especially the males, are not really great people, they're so interesting. Like, Nate Jacobs is a horrible person, but I'm so fascinated to know about his life and like everything about him, because it's just insane the way that he is. Every character is really flawed, and a lot of people don't like a lot of the characters because of that, but I think that especially as a teenager, you're bound to have problematic things about you, like regardless, like you're just kind of bound to be a little bit toxic because you're probably not always the best friend, you're probably not always making the smartest decisions. So I think that that is a really good portrayal of it. Before I move on from characters, I do want to talk about some of my favorites, because I have a lot. Most of them are women, because there's probably about 2 men on the show that I trust as of now, because I'm very scared that season 2 is going to give me an episode about one of them and I'm just not going to like them anymore. But I digress. My favorite characters. I obviously really like Rue and Jules, and there's a lot of characters I do like, but I wouldn't really consider to be my favorites. I think I have a tendency to just not really like the main 2, or like the main characters of things, because I don't know, it's almost like, here's this main character, you have to, like, you're meant to like this one, but I always don't do that. I guess a lot of people do. I feel like most people in shows like the side characters more than they would like the main characters. But in saying that, I do want to point out that none of these side characters feel like side characters. 2 of the like kind of side characters are my favorite and who I like kind of resonate most with. But anyways, I'm going to talk about my favorite characters now. So I really like Cassie. I think that she is a really interesting character. She's someone who I think is really misunderstood, and not that I really see myself in her that much. She definitely has a lot more confidence, but I love the way that she's just trying to be the best version of herself, and she's trying to be a good girlfriend, and she's trying to be like just good to everybody, but it most of the time kind of backfires on her and she ends up receiving a lot of hate. She's definitely not like my favorite, but she's probably one of the more important characters to me. Maddie is incredibly problematic. The character Maddie is dating Nate Jacobs in the show. As I said before, Nate Jacobs is very problematic. Their entire relationship is very problematic, very toxic. But I think a lot of that is important. I think we all in high school know that there are a lot of toxic relationships happening, and we can't wrap our heads around the fact that these people are staying together. But I think that that kind of is important to see, that sometimes when you're just so enthralled with love, you can't look over what's happening in front of you. Maddie, I like Maddie, but because she's just such an interesting character. She just is so funny. Like, she has some of the most iconic lines in the show.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to be here right now because I'm dressed like a hooker and none of you like me. But I just wanted to say congratulations.
Maddie, get out of here.
And she's just like cool. I think I also do have an attachment to Alexa Demie. Like, I really love her, like in waves and just in life. I really like her. But I think Maddie is so interesting. She's definitely a flawed character, but as I mentioned, none of these characters are not flawed, pretty much. Okay, my 2 favorite characters. They have not gotten episodes, they do not have a lot of screen time. However, and honestly, the reason that they're my favorites is probably because I don't know their flaws yet, but I am interested to know. But I do think they're good people. Lexi. And Lexi is Cassie's sister, and so as I mentioned before, Cassie is a bit more popular, and that's why I don't see myself in her a lot. She has a lot of like guys chasing after her, and it's kind of a big thing. And the reason that I resonate with Lexi the most is because she's friends with all these girls and she's in this friend group, but all of her friends have the drama. They all have a lot going on in their love lives. They all have stuff going on, but Lexi doesn't, but she's providing a lot of advice. And I definitely resonate with that. I'm definitely the person who gives a lot of advice, even though I don't necessarily have the same experiences. For example, I feel like I'm probably the friend that doles out the most relationship advice, and yet I've never been in a relationship. I don't know how that works, but everyone tells me I do give good relationship advice, so I don't know, somehow it happens. But I think Lexi really resonates with me, especially the scene whenever her sister Cassie is asking, like, what would you do if two guys liked you? And Lexi's like, I don't think I'll ever be in that situation. And she's like, yeah, but like, what if you liked two guys? And she's like, I also don't think I'd ever be in that situation. But she still provides advice and comfort to her sister, even though she can't relate. And I don't know, I think she's just a really great character. Oh, that sounds kind of bad that I'm like, she's a great character, and I definitely see a lot of myself in her. But I think that she's a really great supporting character. The thing about Lexi is that she doesn't get a lot of screen time, but in the times that she does, she really like, I don't know, she just really captivates me. I think she's like such an interesting character. I think she's very cool. I think it's confirmed that she will have an episode in season 2, so I'm excited to see that because we got an episode about Cassie, and Lexi was in it a little bit, obviously, because they grew up together, and we saw a lot of Cassie's kind of traumatic or troubled childhood, but I'm really excited to see that from Lexi's lens because Cassie is definitely a bit more favored. Like, everyone just kind of gravitates to her because she's super pretty, and she has been since she was young. She just gets a lot of that attention, and I'm really excited to see all of that through the lens of Lexi, who's kind of taken the back seat to a lot of Cassie's experiences. My next character, now, he's not like the craziest, but I have this weird like attachment to him, and I hope he's not bad. Like, there's a little piece of me deep down that's like, what if he's so creepy? But I'm gonna pretend he isn't. He's probably one of my favorite TV show characters, and I don't know why, because he has little to no screen time. But Ethan, I love him. He's my favorite. And I'm gonna talk about my favorite episode, which is the episode he's been in the most, so I'll kind of talk about that. But I love Ethan. He's so wholesome. Like, he's just a king, and I can't even like, you gotta watch the show to know why he's a king, because I don't want to say anything, I don't want to spoil anything, but he's just a king, and I'm scared he's like gonna end up being creepy, but he's just cool, and you know, he seems like he respects women, and I think that's the standard. And you know, the bar is on the floor, but when you compare it to the other men in the show, there's not a lot of competition at the top. I also really like the actor, Austin Abrams, so I don't know. I love Ethan. I also didn't realize how much I actually kind of relate to Gia, who is Rue's younger sister, until kind of recently. And that sounds bad because I don't have a sibling with a drug addiction, but definitely how she kind of has to mediate a lot of the peace in her family is something I can relate to. And I think Gia is also going to have an episode, and so I'm really excited. I think I like the idea of seeing the different perspectives because, like I've said, we've had an episode about Rue, we've had an episode about Cassie, and I'm excited to see the episodes about their sibling and how all of that has affected them. For example, Rue, she's the main character, she overdosed at one point, and we see all of that through the perspective of Rue. And Gia is the one who found her overdosed, so I'm excited to see all of that from Gia's lens. And then kind of the same for Cassie, I'm excited to see her trauma with her dad and her whole family, but through the lens of Lexi, because I think that that's going to be really cool to see both perspectives. Okay, let's talk about my favorite episode. My favorite episode, undoubtedly, is the Halloween episode. I believe it's episode 5 or 6, I'm not sure. I go back and rewatch this episode so frequently, and like I said, it might be because Ethan is in it so much, but I think it's also just a great episode. So this episode follows McKay in the beginning, who is not a character. I don't know where I stand on McKay. I'm kind of neutral on him. Let me know how you feel about McKay, because I don't know. I get a vibe. He's done some kind of bad stuff, but it's kind of justifiable in my eyes. And he's nice sometimes. I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about him. He definitely is just like a normal teenager, but I don't know if I actually like him as a character, or if I would want to say that I like him as a character. It starts out following him, and his story is not the most compelling to me, but the Halloween episode is basically there's just a Halloween party, and it's so good. The soundtrack in the episode is like one of my favorites, Small Town Boy. Love that song, and it adds to the drama so much. So I don't want to spoil and tell you what's exactly going on in the episode, but the cinematography is amazing. The costuming is amazing. The whole show. Same for the makeup. The makeup is insane. That's kind of an honorable mention I want to give as to why I think this is one of the greatest shows. But that, in conjunction with everything happening in the Halloween episode, is so great. There's so much drama happening, and there's so much drama happening with a bunch of different characters, and in some cases that would be really kind of unappealing to follow, because sometimes when there's so many different drama plots happening in a single episode, it's kind of overwhelming. But they're so kind of interwoven. Is that a word? Interweaved? Yeah, interweaved? I don't know. They're kind of just woven together in a way that makes the show really cohesive, or the episode really cohesive. I think we see so much character development from every character, particularly in this episode, but it's crazy that this episode has so much going on, and yet we still see development from every character. We see development in Rue and Jules' relationship. We see development in Cassie and McKay's relationship. We see development in Ethan and Kat's relationship. There's just so much. We learn a lot about Lexi in a way, because not a lot happens, but just her actions make you more aware of who she is as a person, and I don't know, I think that's really great. I really love the Halloween episode. If you've watched it, maybe go try watching it again if you didn't like it. I don't know. But I really, really love this show. I think it's so great. I think when I think about how we're watching it right now, I just know in my heart that in the future, the hipster kids are gonna be like, oh, I wish I was around when Euphoria was coming out, and we are living through that. Because it just feels like an iconic show. It just feels like it's going to be a classic show. And I just already know that there's gonna be some kids being like, oh, I wish I grew up in the Euphoria era. I think that's gonna do it. This video was a little bit longer than usual, but I have a lot to say because I really love this show, really great. If you've watched it, maybe give it a rewatch. I think it's definitely worth it. I think when you know a lot of the information, when you rewatch, it does kind of change your perspective a little bit. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts about Euphoria if you've watched it or if you've been considering watching it. I miss it. Praying for a season 2 anytime relatively soon. And yeah.